Caitlin Clark walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse on Friday night already furious. Not at the Golden State Valkyries or the defensive game plan, but what she believed was a fabricated and insulting narrative surrounding her situation. For every transcendent athlete, there comes a defining breaking point when they realize they are fighting an exhausting battle on multiple fronts. And Clark appeared to reach that moment at the press conference podium the day before tip-off. She directly confronted the media narrative, looking into the cameras and forcefully correcting what she said was an inaccurate injury timeline that had been misreported throughout the week. Calm but unmistakably firm, Clark laid out what she described as the indisputable facts, making it clear she was no longer willing to let others control the story.
And I actually went back and looked, because of all these narratives that are going crazy online, about when I told my mom I wasn't going to play the game. 4:47, you guys found out at 5:20. So one of the most important people in my life found out 40 minutes before you guys.
Caitlin Clark's message to the basketball world was clear. The suggestion of an injury reporting cover-up made no sense because the timeline was far too tight for that narrative to hold. She appeared more frustrated than at any press conference this season, and the very next night, she seemed to channel that emotion into one of the most electrifying performances of her professional career. In Indiana's 90-82 victory over the Golden State Valkyries, Clark delivered a performance that felt like more than just a great game. It looked like a statement, blending raw emotion with elite execution. She turned frustration into focus and put together a performance that energized the crowd and fueled the fever. The game featured physical play, heated moments, and emotional intensity, including a double technical that only seemed to raise Clark's competitive fire. While the box score tells part of the story, the flow of the game revealed a hard-fought, emotional battle, with Clark at the center of it all, play with aggression, confidence, and a kind of star power that made the night feel unforgettable.
They kind of did everything they could to stop Caitlin. And you got to give Nakase credit, because she is the guard stopper. That's her thing. That's her thing. She's able to stop guards. And she did everything to try to stop Caitlin. It didn't work.
The first half of the game was a physical battle, with the Golden State Valkyries coming into Indianapolis with a clear defensive plan designed to slow Caitlin Clark. Head coach Natalie Nakase, known as one of the WNBA's sharpest offensive minds, appeared to build a strategy focused on disrupting Clark's rhythm by taking away her favorite scoring opportunities. The Valkyries applied constant pressure, sending multiple defenders at her, contesting catches, and using relentless physicality to make every possession difficult. Their goal was simple: keep Clark uncomfortable and prevent her from finding the flow that makes her so dangerous offensively. For much of the first two quarters, that strategy created challenges, disrupting timing and limiting clean looks. But while the Valkyries succeeded in making things difficult early, Clark's competitive mindset ensured that the pressure only added to the intensity of the battle rather than taking her out of the game.
Before we get to the Gabby Williams, what?
Right before the break, we got a little John going on. Caitlin says, "Hey,
look,
you and me, Hayes, you
Kelly,
and me."
look at Caitlin blowing her kisses. Caitlin blew her kisses, bro. Look. So no, it was Janelle Sloan and Caitlin Clark. Referees had to step in. Look at Caitlin, guys.
At the peak of the first half, the tension on the court finally boiled over. Caitlin Clark attacked the basket aggressively and swiped at a loose ball while battling with Valkyries forward Janelle Sloan, leading to extra contact that immediately sparked a heated exchange. Sloan confronted Clark face-to-face. Words were exchanged, and the intensity quickly escalated as players from both teams began moving toward the action. Veronica Burton stepped in to help separate the two, while officials assessed double technical fouls, one to Clark and one to Sloan. Both teams headed into halftime with emotions running high, and the atmosphere inside the arena charged with tension. The altercation became one of the defining emotional moments of the game, adding even more intensity to an already physical contest. For a highly competitive player like Clark, emotional moments like that can often become fuel, and the second half reflected a player who appeared energized, focused, and determined to respond on the court.
It's damn near altering the game, bro. It's just damn near altering the game. Let me pull this up real quick. Let me pull the game cast back up real quick. So it's another timeout. So the Fever call a full time. Why would Stephanie White call a timeout? I don't know what happened. I got to see what happened, guys.
Caitlin Clark came out of the locker room in the third quarter with a completely different level of intensity and immediately made her presence felt. Bringing the ball up the court in a tie game at 48, she calmly pulled up from well beyond the arc, around 33 feet from the basket, and drilled a deep logo three that instantly ignited the home crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It was a statement shot, delivered in a high-pressure moment after an emotional first half and a week filled with outside scrutiny. Clark's reaction added even more energy to the moment as she exchanged words with veteran guard Tiffany Hayes in the competitive back and forth that often happens in heated games between elite players. The crowd fed off the emotion, and Clark appeared to channel all of that intensity into her performance. That sequence, the deep three, the confidence, and the emotional edge, captured a competitive fire that helped fuel her takeover in the second half as she seized control of the game for Indiana.
Aaliyah Boston of Kelsey assist. Caitlin Clark makes 2 free throws. Tip Hayes hits a 3. Sophie Cunningham makes a free throw. Caitlin hits a big 3 to tie it up from like 30. From 30. They go hit a 3. Hines Allen's okay. And then suddenly it's like Caitlin makes a real tough layup and 1. She makes a super tough and 1 to give the Fever the lead for the first time. Caitlin misses a circus shot, then hits Sophie.
Lexi Hull doing it all on that defensive possession. Clark. Oh! From another stratosphere!
Once Caitlin Clark knocked down that deep logo three, the entire defensive dynamic of the game began to shift. Golden State's carefully designed scheme, which had spent the first half focused on crowding her space, disrupting her rhythm, and forcing the ball out of her hands, suddenly had to make adjustments. The moment defenders were forced to extend farther out and respect Clark's range from well beyond the arc, the passing lanes opened up dramatically. That is where Clark became even more dangerous. Instead of simply hunting shots, she began dissecting the defense with her playmaking, pushing the tempo in transition, and delivering pinpoint passes that turned Indiana's offense into a completely different machine. The Valkyries' defensive pressure that looked effective in stretches of the first half started to break down as Clark found ways to punish every adjustment. By the end of the night, she delivered a complete all-around performance, finishing with 22 points, 9 highly efficient assists, and 4 made three-pointers on 9 attempts while logging 32 demanding minutes in a game that required both physical toughness and offensive precision. What made the performance so impactful was not just the scoring, but the way Clark controlled the entire flow of the game once she found her rhythm. Golden State's defense could not commit fully to stopping her shot without exposing gaps elsewhere, and Clark's ability to read those openings transformed Indiana's offense in the second half. Her ball-dominant efficiency forced the Valkyries into impossible decisions, and once the scheme started cracking, the Fever began to thrive as a team. Clark's ability to orchestrate the transition attack and create offense for others changed the energy of the game, turning individual brilliance into team-wide momentum. That is what makes her such a difficult player to contain over a full 40 minutes. Defenses can slow certain parts of her game for stretches, but sustaining that pressure without giving something else away becomes incredibly difficult. Aaliyah Boston was one of the biggest beneficiaries of that shift, putting together a dominant performance of her own that showcased how dangerous Indiana can be when Clark and Boston are operating in sync. Boston controlled the paint on both ends, finishing with 20 points and 16 rebounds while shooting an efficient 8-4, 15 from the field. Her rebounding presence gave Indiana second chances, while her interior scoring punished Golden State whenever Clark's playmaking created opportunities in stride. Boston's performance may not have generated the same highlight moments, but it was a crucial part of Indiana's success, as she consistently imposed herself in the paint and provided the physical presence the Fever needed. When Clark is stretching defenses with deep shooting, orchestrating transition offense, and finding Boston in favorable spots, Indiana becomes a far more complete and dangerous team. The combination of Clark's perimeter gravity and Boston's interior dominance gives the Fever an offensive balance that can create serious problems for opponents, and that second half performance was a clear example of how effective that partnership can be when everything starts clicking.
16 rebounds with 24 seconds left in this one. Caitlin Clark don't look like she's going to get a double-double, but you never know. You just never know. But they out fouling, so I doubt she get it. 22 9-2, 22, 9-2. Solid numbers, bro. Caitlin Clark been averaging 20 points a game, guys.
Natalie Nakase is widely respected as one of the sharpest coaching minds in the WNBA. With a strong basketball background that includes experience as an assistant with the Golden State Warriors. Known for her detailed film study and defensive preparation, Nakase and the Valkyries came into the matchup with a specific plan to limit Caitlin Clark's strengths. But after Indiana's 90-82 victory, it became clear that Clark found ways to adjust and make Golden State pay in the second half. Once the defense shifted to take away her deep shooting, Clark identified openings in real time, delivered precise passes, and turned those small gaps into major offensive opportunities for the Fever. That is one of the defining qualities of elite players. They do not simply rely on talent. They adapt, diagnose what the defense is trying to do, and find ways to counter it as the game unfolds. Clark's ability to combine scoring, playmaking, and decision-making made her difficult to contain once she settled into the flow of the game. The win also highlighted the momentum Indiana is building as a team, with Clark looking confident and healthy, and Aaliyah Boston delivering one of her strongest performances of the season. The Fever showed flashes of the balance and chemistry that can make them a dangerous opponent. Clark's energy, shot-making, and leadership helped spark Indiana, while Boston's dominance inside gave the team a powerful 1-2 combination. It was a kind performance that reminded everyone of Clark's competitive fire and ability to impact the game in multiple ways. For Indiana, the 90-82 win was more than just another result in the standings. It was a performance that showcased their potential when their stars are playing in rhythm and the offense is operating at a high level.